It came up today. It came up this morning with a beautiful woman that I was speaking to that had some emotional frustrations and ate some things that she said that she was not going to eat and kind of went down the shame spiral. And this is a big issue. I mean, we talk oftentimes when we're talking about weight loss and women and weight loss, it can be a little bit complicated. It's oftentimes not one thing. And so if we're talking about hunger, how you relieve hunger is by eating real foods at proper times, right? So like your body can get back in the groove of like when it's releasing its digestive enzymes. So like having any kind of like a steady, consistent time of day that you were eating fresh, alive, and vibrant foods that are full of minerals and nutrients and enzymes and antioxidants and vitamins and like all these amazing things that your body actually needs, then you're not going to be walking around all day hungry. If we're talking about cravings, there are certain ways to, completely diminish cravings. I mean, we think that it's somehow this like mental control that like we need to have over our bodies. And really, if you work with your body and you regulate your hormonal balance in a very intentional way, then it's like a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, and like cravings are gone. Like they're gone. They're out of your face. So hunger, cravings, snacking. Anyway, there's all these types of things that we can do in terms of supporting our body and making it easy for us, for the body. Well, it's actually interesting. We talk about it like, melting away or losing the weight. Like it doesn't get lost and it doesn't melt, right? Like your body, due to proper hormonal signals, releases the weight in the fat cells and then your body metabolizes it. So like all systems go, all systems on board and like working and functioning properly. And then we don't really have to worry about it. Like it's not something to like stay up thinking about at night, like figuring out the algorithm, right? For like weight loss, like you give your body what it needs and your body does the rest. It's like really amazing. However, there is another complication for some of us, and it is like, it's tied to emotional eating, and it is the blame and the shame, more specifically, when it comes to our body, our exact weight, our size, our food, what we're eating or we're not eating, this like good girl, bad girl judgment that we have of ourselves. And obviously, if we're being a good girl, then we feel good. But if we're like whatever judgment that we have around being bad, and it's totally different for everybody, right? Like, oh my gosh, it varies so greatly on what that means. But someone asked me today, they're like, I want what you have, Rose, because it's not like, oh my God, you're so perfect and you're always, being a good girl. She's like, you plan for success in your life. And if something happens, like you don't beat yourself up over it. Like you don't shame yourself anymore. I can see it. I can feel it. Like I recognize it. And that was a really powerful awareness by somebody else desperately trying to create that for themselves by controlling their food or being loose with their food. And when it comes to the hunger and the cravings, those are things that we, can make adjustments in the way that we eat or what we're eating to relieve that experience. But emotional eating and shaming ourselves about our body, our weight, or our food, it cannot be relieved by a better plan or no plan, right? There's nothing about the food that changes the way that we think about our body or about food or about our weight, other than changing the way that we think about our body or about our weight or about our food and what we're eating. And so this requires a little bit of a different twist, because the two things, of course, do and can go together, right? Like it's going to be challenging to be, stuffing our face with donuts and then just like, working on the mental part of it. It's like, oh, I'm good. I'm lovable no matter what. I'm good. I'm lovable. Like while we're like doing this, binging like that's not what we want either. Right. But we do want the freedom and the flexibility to, and the tools and the skill set. Like when we were growing up, And God bless. I mean, my son's 13. He's just finished 7th grade. And I remember 7th grade. And I remember I told him, I was like, it will never be any worse than it was this last year. Like, you're over the hump, honey. You're over the hump. Because it's just such a challenging time on so many levels. And the thing about, school and growing up and being a kid and all of this weird dramas and traumas that we've kind of like carried with us through, from our childhood, is that we were taught what to think, right? What was good or bad or right or wrong, depending on whoever was the person who was teaching us at that time. But we weren't necessarily taught how our brain actually works, how memories work, how emotions work, how feelings work, and how to think, how to take responsibility and respond to our own abilities as a human being with a heart and a mind and a soul and a body and like all of these things going on, and how to utilize strategies to think intentionally with intention and not just be at the mercy and the whim of whoever else's thoughts, feelings, and ideas about us. And when women come to this group and come to me, it is often because they have spent many years believing other people's dramas and traumas and lies and making it their own, especially about their weight, about body, about food, about, being like what it even means to be good girl, bad girl. I mean, it's really funny. If you watch any of my like live cooking demos, I'll like start to go through, these are some options of things that you could eat. And there's like always comments of like, well, the total vegan camp, and it's like the total keto camp. And it's like, well, you need to do it this way. And like, how can you have a sip of coffee before this time in the morning? And just like, there's so much what we call nutritionism. So when I was getting my master's degree in health education, specializing in nutrition, that was actually one of the things that we came across. And all of us getting this degree, we're like, oh my God, I totally have that. Like, you get super snooty about like whatever the nutrition thing is, because you're like, this is it, and this works, and everyone should do it, and don't you know? And it is a real thing for those of us who have trauma around our body and around weight and around dieting and around food, to not get caught up in that. And it's like, okay, let me take a step back. Let me really take some time to consider and analyze my own thinking patterns and processes around my body, around my weight, and around food, and begin to make some strategic decisions about how I want to think about my body, about my weight, and about my food, not what anybody else thinks. And that is one of the most empowering and wonderful things that I have been taught over the years. And, it's really funny. It's often, what we think about something is usually the opposite of what it actually is. And that's really what hypnosis, hypnotherapy, meditation, guided meditation, visualization, all of these different ways of intentionally calming our mind and thinking about things the way that we actually want them to be, not necessarily how they are or how they were. Because if that's all that we're going with is how things were or how things are, then where's the opportunity for change? Where's the inspiration? Where's the hope? Where's the possibilities that are beyond our past experience? And so if we're just going on the past stuff and just listening to the head and what it's saying and what other people are saying, we have to get into the creative side of our mind and begin to insist that the experience that we are wanting and deserving, I know that's a tough one for us who have really beaten ourselves up over this food, weight, body thing for a long time, right? To even consider that we deserve, that it is on the table for us to be free, like free. Not that it doesn't ever cross your mind or happen or have a weird thought or do a weird thing or whatever. Like the mind is never going to stop. It's literally its job is to remind us of all the past stuff. But when we take the time to learn to separate ourselves from that chatter, then we begin to have power and we begin to have strength and we begin to be able to create our life experience where it includes being intentional with our food. At least this is what it includes for me. right? It includes for me being intentional with my food, and that is a form of self-care. The time that I put into planning my meals and the bit of chopping and cooking and preparing, like all of that is self-care. I'm not a good girl or a bad girl if I do it or don't do it. I'm not a good girl or a bad girl if I eat it or I don't eat it, or if I, whatever all of that judgment is. However, it is a form of self-care. It is me showing up for myself in a way that allows me to feel really good, right? Really comfortable and confident in this body and in this mind. So that is my tidbit for today. We got to let that shame go, ladies. And I'm going to be talking more about that. It's actually a workshop that we're going to be doing. So it's not just me talking head at you. I want you to sign up for this workshop. It's going to be Saturday, Sunday, July 1st and 2nd from 8 to 10 in the morning Pacific time. So if you're in the Eastern time, I guess that's 11 to 1. Saturday and Sunday. And so I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process on how to release the weight. I mean, you quite possibly could lose hundreds of pounds that weekend. And obviously I'm not talking about just on your body. As we talked about, like the weight has to be metabolized. So there's really only so much weight that you can lose in any one day. However, the weight that you've been carrying on your shoulders, possibly taking care of everybody else, the weight that we carry in our minds, all of this itty bitty shitty committee chatter, blame, shame game, and the weight that we carry on our heart. Oftentimes there can be some sadness or disappointment. So how do we transform that? How do we use that for our benefit? How do we allow those things to be placed in the past and behind us? Not that they are not going to have happened, right? Like they're going to go back in time, but how do we create an experience today and moving forward where that has lightened up, that the weight of the world is lifted from our shoulders, from our minds, from our hearts, and of course, from our bodies, and we're feeling really good. So I want you to be there. Sign up for it. Registration is totally free. I'm really looking forward to supporting you. I love you so much. If you ever have any questions, just private message me or leave them in the comments. Give me a like, a share, like, a share, comment, all of those things. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. You are doing a good job. This life is not easy for most anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. There's something, because it is complicated, girlfriend. Body, mind, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, got a lot going on. So you're doing a good job, and there's always room for enhancement, improvement, more love, more joy, more opportunity, more possibility. I love you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.